been thinking about how strange it is that we're all born into life, but somehow we're expected to justify it. No one tells you that directly. It's just something you kind of absorb over time. That being alive isn't enough. That existing needs a reason. That time has to be used. And I think that's where the fear of wasting your life really begins. Not with death, but with the pressure to prove that your time here meant something. Because when people talk about wasting their life, they're rarely talking about doing nothing. They're talking about doing things that didn't turn into anything. If you get what I'm trying to say, moments that didn't lead somewhere, choices that didn't pay off, or versions of themselves that didn't become permanent. We look back and ask, what was the point of that? And if we can't get a clear answer, we assume the time was wasted. I think that's such a heavy way to carry your own history. It turns memory into evidence, and your life into something that's constantly on trial. I notice how often I judge my past self for staying too long, for not knowing sooner, for needing time, as if learning slowly is a flaw, as if confusion is something you're supposed to grow out of. We're taught to celebrate clarity, but no one talks about how long it takes to actually get there. Most of life is lived before you even understand it. And I think we're afraid that those unpolished years, the ones where we were unsure, tired, insecure, just trying to survive, don't deserve to be counted. But those years are usually the ones that cost us the most. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they take work. And yet, because they don't come with obvious rewards, we treat them like filler episodes. Like they were just something to get through until real life started. But what if that was real life? I think the fear of wasting your life also comes from the idea that there's a correct version of you that you're meant to become. And every choice you make is either moving you closer to her or further away. In my opinion, that is such a cruel way to live because it turns every decision into a moral test. Rest becomes laziness, changing your mind becomes failure, staying becomes stagnation. You're never just allowed to be where you are. You're always being measured against where you could be. And the version of you that could have been more becomes this quiet ghost that follows you around, not judging you out loud, just standing there, reminding you of everything you haven't done yet. I think that ghost is what people are really afraid of disappointing. Not your parents, not society, themselves. Or at least the version of themselves they imagined when they were younger. The one who thought life would feel clearer by now, more intentional, more meaningful. There's this assumption that meaning is something you arrive at, like a destination. But what no one tells you is that meaning is incredibly inconsistent. Some days you feel connected to your life, other days you feel completely detached from it. And both days count. But we've been conditioned to believe that only the days that feel purposeful are valid. The rest are just wasted. I think that's why this fear feels so constant because purpose isn't something you can hold on to permanently. It comes and goes. And when it leaves, we panic. We start questioning everything, our choices, our pace, our worth. We start narrating our lives from the outside, like we're already looking back, asking questions like, will this matter? Will I regret this? Is this the best use of my time? And I wonder how much of our lives we miss while we're busy evaluating them. Because when you're always looking at your life from a distance, you're never fully inside it. You're present, but guarded, alive, but braced. And that constant bracing, that's exhausting. I also think this fear is deeply connected to how visible we think a meaningful life should be. We live in a time where value is shown, where progress is posted, growth is announced, success is documented. So when your life is happening quietly, internally, it can feel like it's slipping through your fingers, like it's not solid enough to count. And that's terrifying. Because what if you're changing in ways no one can see? What if your biggest victories are private? What if the most important thing that you're doing right now is learning how to stay soft in a world that keeps hardening you? There's no applause for that, no milestone, no proof. And without proof, the fear creeps in that maybe you're just drifting. But drifting isn't the same as wasting. Sometimes drifting is what happens when you're tired. Sometimes it's what happens when you're healing. Sometimes it's what happens when your old goals no longer fit, but your new ones haven't formed yet. That space in between, the not knowing, feels unbearable because it can't be explained. And anything that can't be explained feels irresponsible to us. I think we underestimate how much courage it takes to exist without certainty, to wake up and keep going without a clear narrative, to trust that just because this chapter doesn't make sense yet, it doesn't mean it's empty. A wasted life isn't one that looks slow. It's one where you never let yourself feel present because you're too busy preparing for a future version of yourself. A life spent constantly waiting to begin. And I'm realizing that so much of my fear isn't about time running out. It's about time passing without permission. So maybe we need to start giving ourselves that permission to let seasons exist without forcing meaning out of them, to let ourselves be unfinished without calling it failure, to stop asking our lives to perform. I don't think you waste your life by being unsure. I think you waste it by believing you're only allowed to exist when you're certain. And maybe one day, when we look back, we won't remember how productive we were. We'll remember how it felt to be alive in our own skin, how it felt to choose to keep going without guarantees. And maybe that will be enough, even if it doesn't sound impressive when we say it out loud. If you're listening to this right now, maybe while walking or lying in bed or doing something you feel slightly guilty for doing, I just want to say this. If you've been worried that you're wasting your life, that fear didn't come from nowhere. It came from caring. It came from wanting your time to matter. But maybe your life doesn't need to be justified to be real. Maybe you don't need a clearer plan or a better version of yourself or a more impressive story before you're allowed to exist in it. If this season feels quiet or slow or confusing, that doesn't mean it doesn't count. It just means you're still in it. And if no one has told you this lately, you don't need permission to live your life as it is right now. You're not behind, you're not late, and you're not wasting anything by being here. Good night!